Well, as China tries to find a way to curtail the COVID-19 outbreak, the infection rate outside the country is just a fraction of the total. But the impact on global supply chains could be much greater, particularly in Latin America, where the Asian giant is the second largest trading partner. CGTN's Dan Collyns takes a closer look.
The impact of the novel coronavirus is having a ripple effect on the economy in Latin America. Take a look at Chile, which sells about a third of its exports to China. Chile leads the world in copper mine production. Large shipments to China are being disrupted because of the virus. Meanwhile, perishable products have taken a much bigger hit, according to a law firm that represents fruit exporters.
There are two principal problems. The transportation of the product and the delays, on taking it from the exporter to the final consumer, and the low prices of those products in the market.
About 20% of fruit imports, particularly cherries and grapes, popular for Chinese New Year celebrations, were held up. China's growing demand has made it a crucial market for Chile and Peru in recent years. Here in Peru, there's still optimism that it can escape the worst of the commercial fallout caused by the coronavirus. But it too has a burgeoning fresh produce sector, and avocados in particular are due for export to China beginning next month. Peru exported more than $260 million of fresh produce to China in 2019, mostly grapes, then blueberries, but also some $34 million worth of avocados. Luckily for Peru, China imported most of its grapes last year. Even so, internal demand in China has dropped by half since the outbreak. Last week, Peru suspended fish exports to China, but the country's ambassador to Peru, Liang Yu, said the worst was over.
I believe we are about to reach a turning point, and the impact of this epidemic in China will be in the short term. It will mainly impact tourism and transport, but in the long term, the economy won't be seriously affected, especially as consumer demand is accumulating. After the epidemic, growth will be much faster, which will compensate for the previous losses.
He's optimistic about commerce with Peru.
As for trade between China and Peru, I don't believe it will be affected because the accumulated demand will surge throughout the rest of the year. Imports of copper and other typical products like Peruvian fruit will remain constant and have normal growth.
But experts don't believe that Peru and other Latin American economies are out of danger yet. Peru is principally a mining country and the biggest copper producer after Chile and China.
What happens in China affects not just the quantity of mineral or fish products it imports, but also the prices, because when the Chinese buying is reduced, the prices drop. So that is a major problem for Peru, as some 90 to 95% of its exports are minerals.
For Peru, Uruguay, Chile and Brazil, China is their top importer. But the Asian giant is also a huge investor across the region. That investment is bound to slow, say experts, amid the uncertainty around the coronavirus. And after a year of slow growth in the region, economic forecasts have been trimmed further. Dan Collyns, CGTN, Lima.